Happy New Year's, everybody. Um, Last year was a hell of a rodeo, wasn't it? Personally, for me, it was probably one of the most difficult years of my life, but also I reaped a lot of insights and character building assets that are priceless. So it's a very mixed bag. But it's perfect. The ingredients in the cauldron, you know, for my resolution for revolution on a personal level and to contribute to seeing that happen at macro, you know. And the coming year I really see as preparation for 2027. And I'm not really sure exactly how to explain why. But it's kind of a feeling I've had for a while, and I'm starting to see it emerging from other random places, this idea that certain voices are going to really come into their own and have a presence that is sort of recognized as necessary and valid on a widespread scale for the first time in 2027. And the human design system, that was a lot of the point of that guy's trip, I guess, you know, was kind of about that. And his system is so accurate that although I normally don't give a lot of weight to, like, you know, astrological predictions and whatnot, in the case of the human design system, I'm not even going to, you know, try to argue with the guy. 2027, you know, I mean, his shit seems solid. And there's a lot of other, you know, sources for this. Also, my age will add to 11, and the year adds to 11. So it's like magical expansion personally and in macro. That's how I'm reading the signs, you know. And it certainly isn't going to hurt to have this projection and treat the coming year as staging for our collective emergence as, like, fully realized beings. You know, whether it's a matter of prophecy or self-fulfilling prophecy due to our own will, the fulfillment of our own individual will, is really neither here nor there, right? We are witnessing the incomprehensible at every scale of magnitude. And it is just exponentially amplified, it seems, with each passing day. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the details of this because I just don't want to test the algorithm. But I mentioned in our Discord meeting earlier tonight this thing about Donald Trump and Lake Michigan and the baby. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. But I think one other person in the Discord had heard about it. And it just kind of struck me that something of that magnitude about a sitting U.S. president can come out of the Justice Department and barely make a ripple in the world that we are living in this moment. It is truly astonishing. It is terrifying. And at the same time, it's utterly inspiring. Because when you see this, you know that the opposite exists somewhere in the field as well. And we have the technology and we have the understanding of neuroscience and cognitive science and psychology to actually explain to these people why they're not seeing these things. And when you have that capacity, then you have the ability to harmonize the dissonance in the field, which is really what all of it is. So we're really at a place where, as rapidly as we can identify a problem, we can apply a solution. And the one issue that we have to overcome is a lack of unity and coherence. Our communication is disrupted by certain algorithmic interferences, you know? And so mostly what I've popped on here tonight to suggest, to encourage people, that we really just need to double down on our efforts to unify, communicate, to create community, to create a field of coherence, pockets of order in the sea of entropy and chaos. And once those nodes are established, it has the potential to generate a new pattern within the field of entropy. But unless we actually take the initiative to form the nodes and create the local renderer for experience and creation and consciousness, it's just not going to happen on its own. It is happening on its own, some level, but let's not get too metaphysical right now. You guys know what I'm saying. I assume that this solar cycle has done pretty much the same thing to everyone else that's on a similar wavelength that it's done to me this year, which means that everyone should be in a place of clarity and poise and purpose and power, and actually prepared to execute their blueprint with concision and efficacy. So I resolve to be less governable, if that's even possible. First and foremost, and beyond influence, in the sense that, like, I'm probably already, I speak freely enough that it's probably to my detriment a lot of the times, but it's only going to get worse in that regard. And I really want to encourage everyone else to take that same position. Do not undermine yourself for any reason. Not for convenience, not for finances, not for peace even. I saw a tweet. I'm not even shitting you. This is real. Elon Musk actually tweeted this. Where's my phone? I want to make sure I get it right. I think I can. It said, if tolerance means the end of Western civilization, then we cannot be tolerant. And I was like, this can't be real. This is the freedom-loving, flag-waving. Have we forgotten the what, you know? There's like a integration of tolerance and freedom that is inextricable. You cannot abandon tolerance and embrace freedom simultaneously. You cannot do that. And so, you know, I responded, if tolerance is antithetical to Western civilization, then it deserves and even demands its end. What the fuck, you know? And I'm just kind of tying that into what I was saying about your sovereignty and standing your ground and like not bending or bowing to any kind of influence under any circumstances. If you're standing in the light of truth, stand the fuck up. You know what I mean? Do not prostrate yourself before any symbol, any ideology. And truth would never require you to prostrate yourself. So stand up and don't flinch. No matter what's coming at you, just don't even flinch. Because if you're standing in the light of truth, all else is but shadows, and there is that which remains. Yeah, I mean, I've said recently that like change doesn't really come from within for a lot of people. That's not how it works. That's not how the universe really is designed. Every generative component works on a recursive, reflective kind of mechanism, right? And it actually makes sense just in terms of like evolutionary, just survival, that we're reflecting our environment. And for most people, it's their experience. Those of us that have the capacity for self determination in that regard have to create the environment. It says it just dropped the stream, but it's almost never true. So, we are light. And if we can constitute ourselves in accordance with truth, that light will, by force of its own nature, reshape the world. But it's the broken among us, really, that find ourselves, I don't want to say burdened, because it's as much of a blessing as anything, but, saddled with this responsibility. And it's confusing to be among the broken and dejected and suddenly realize that you have to constitute this light. And if you doubt it, look around you and ask yourself, who else will? There's a hole in the soul that the light shines through. That's why, we're all glow sticks. You crack them in the light, But this is the moment. And this has really been weighing heavily on me for a long time, but particularly the last couple of days. This is the moment. If we do not formulate a coherent structure over the next year, this is not going to go anywhere that any of us are going to like. And the thing is, the apathy that I think is largely contributing to this lack of unity and coherence and like enthusiasm, for a positive revolution, is the fact that the opposition seems so just absurd. When people hear things like, oh, the president knocked up a 13-year-old and then went out on a boat with the dad and beheaded it and threw it in the lake, like, you're not even surprised. Like, honestly, you're not even surprised. And when you look out at the Trump supporters and they don't even blink when the Justice Department says this, you're not surprised. Like, there's barely a ripple, and it's no surprise. look what the fuck they've done to us, but they haven't done it to all of us. You know? And what I have to say about that is that every generative process in the universe is recursive, right? It looks back and it copies and then it goes forward. DNA does it, Fibonacci sequence does it at the most fundamental subquantum level. Calabi-Yau manifolds and D-branes do it. It's all that, right? And it's also this interplay of opposites. So basically, you have this system that creates patterns and then it replicates them. So right after the singularity, there was dark matter that should have annihilated everything, so it just collapsed back into nothingness. By like, I don't remember the language for this, but it's like some tiny fucking, you know, quantum measurement of like mass or whatever. The creative principle basically emerged victorious against like ridiculously insane odds that couldn't happen. Once that pattern had been established, there's nothing that you can do to undo it. The creative principle, life, emerges triumphant. There's this interaction of opposites that are perfectly balanced that should result in annihilation, but instead, a third thing of a higher nature always emerges. So when we see this opposition, and you just think of the formula, that our historical precedent says the light always emerges victorious, that the creative principle has always historically won against ridiculous odds. So we have the entire fucking field of subatomic particles as historical precedent. You know what I mean? In fact, when two anti-corollary particles annihilate each other, there's nothing but photons left behind. You know? Like, the light emerges victorious. Life wins against these insane odds. And the pressure, the resistance, is an absolutely necessary component. And the more of it there is, and the more improbable success is, the greater the actual momentum when the third thing of a higher nature emerges from the process, right? Like, the greater the victory. So, you know, in case you guys think that I have some like unrealistic confidence due to naive idealism, it's not. It's grounded in fucking physics. You know, time and time again. I mean, Penrose, if his, you know, theory of what are they calling it now? The big bounce, you know, loop, quantum loop. Well, it doesn't even matter. I mean, we don't even need to theorize. Just particle, antiparticle collides. There's nothing but photons, right? Eventually, every single particle in the universe will collide with its anti-corollary, and there'll be nothing but light. So we already know the ending. And we know that everything's made of reflections. Therefore, light always wins. If we can see it as the result of all of these interactions, then we already know the outcome is that we win. And by we, I mean the goal state, really. You know, you could call it the light, you could call it good, you could call it all these things, but if we're going to just strip it down to the mechanisms, it's just the creative principle or the organizing principle, even. One time I was driving through a blizzard and I was thinking about God or something, and this voice in my head was like, God is the organizing principle. And I slammed on my brakes and I was like, wait a minute. You know, so whatever label you want to put on it, there is a slight edge in favor of the things that are aligned with that current. And like Michael Levin's idea of light cones and goal states, right? Like you have particles, and they have a collective goal state, and they have an individual function. And then you have that on the level of cells, and then you have that on the level of societies. And all biological systems are seeking homeostasis, and if they are not coming into homeostasis, it's because there is some sort of dissonance that is artificial that's being introduced. Because all of these biological systems are just naturally designed to fall into homeostasis, and that includes civilizations and cultures. And so the collective goal state for humanity is obviously that we want to be able to express ourselves, to explore, to collect data on behalf of the universe, which I think is like the major reason we exist. Right? We want to facilitate a system that supports all of that, optimized to the best of our ability. And the reality is that we have the understanding, we have the science to prove that this is really how things work. We have the technology to integrate like Fibonacci optimization, which is something I'm not going to get into in depth right now. If you're more interested, you can my fractal algorithm videos. In fact, before I popped on here, I found an article. They shot a laser based on Fibonacci, just future. My community post, go read it. If you've been following the algorithm series, yeah. Point being, we can determine optimized systems for socioeconomic everything. And we can even create algorithms that are able to adapt these systems in real time. And you know what I mean? All of the potential is there there's not really a full realization of the goal state, right? But to like make an evolutionary leap similar to, the missing link, that is where we're at right now, where human suffering can be reduced to that which is only that which is unavoidable because of the context of the system, right? That's within our grasp. All of the deceptions of politics and religion can easily be laid out and explained, and opinion is largely propaganda generated. There's truth, and then there's subjective interpretations of truth. Our culture has kind of been trained to confuse these things in such a way that it allows the overlords to manipulate everyone and to keep them believing in all these illusions and stuff. But we have the ability to objectively demonstrate the truths in ways that are irrefutable. The old paradigm is fucking done. They're done. It's over. It's fucking over. The problem is that it seems like some of these pieces of shit are actually determined to like take the whole thing down with them if they can't keep it as their like personal fucking toy. And I've explained to you guys why. I mean, I'm sure you guys know this anyways, but the whole inbreeding thing among royalty was literally in order to consolidate the psychopath gene. And so that does constitute a major problem, that like, for example, some of the European leaders have figured out that the completely like left-hand path, self-absorbed, self-centered mentality is actually going to destroy them too. So they've gotten smart enough to like start like more equally distributing the resources in the interest of supporting the collective goal state, right? They figured out it was in their own best interest. It's not because they're more compassionate all of a sudden. That's not it. The U.S. and Israel and some of these other people, I think they're just so psychopathic that they either don't care that they're going to be destroyed, and a lot of them are old too, so they're just kind of like, might as well. But that's all that is between us. And it's not like utopia exactly, but man, so much better than the world that we currently inhabit that it's almost indescribable and barely comprehensible. And it's not difficult to actually implement all of this stuff that would move us way closer to a legit new paradigm. The only thing standing between us is a bunch of 80-year-old psychopaths. standing between us and that, you know. Not only are they going to die soon, but there are a lot of other influences that are more subtle and intangible that are really in your sleeve. Like, this is an ace that's in your sleeve. Your ability to exert influence on the collective consciousness. It's a real thing. It's scientifically demonstrable at this point. So what you have to understand is that we have some dense nodes in these psychopaths that are very entrenched, right? But we have a collective with an electromagnetic influence that is like enough that if it was really focused, those guys wouldn't even know what hit them. They would wake up the next day and they would have forgotten that they're psychopaths. Like, we have the ability to influence the field in coherence to that degree. And the reason that they are acting like such a bunch of fucking psychos right now and trying to scare everyone to death, and, you know, they know this. They know that evolution, in the case of the human organism, is inextricably intertwined with its awareness. And their ability to manipulate and cajole and deceive the time is almost up. And I can explain it in signal gating to an extent as well. Like, one of the main things that the system exploits to keep people under control is the signal gating. Because once you establish a precedent in the nervous system of a young being, everything it experiences after that, like, the nervous system literally will edit out perceptions that are not consistent with its expectations, right? And this is science. This is not something that I'm just accusing people of. Like, we know all the technical details of how this works. And it's not just super sensibles or whatever, things that, you know, like ultrasound and UV rays that we don't really need. It does apply to macro perceptions. So when you see people not making sense of the political spectrum and stuff, they're literally editing their experience of reality. And it's based on these early imprints. So, for example, if you're taught as a child, especially if the father is the one that inculcates you with this, there's no spiritual dimension to life. There's no synchronicities are stupid, or, you know, that whole thing. Then the child is never going to see these things. His nervous system is going to edit them all out, and he's going to perceive a dead, material, random universe full of gobbledygook. And the same goes with religion. Like, once you can, if you do this stuff early, then the entire generative model created by our nervous system is just this recursive, reflective process that I described in the beginning of the stream. That served our evolutionary purposes when all we had to do was hunt and, like, garden and stuff, you know? Our environment is accelerating so rapidly that it has surpassed our cognitive, our nervous system's ability to adapt fast enough. So this signal gating that used to serve our purposes and keep us alive is now allowing us to be exploited into extinction. Right? It's an evolutionary mismatch. And I think they're noticing it. I'm hearing this is like a buzzword amongst evolutionary, you know, theorists or whatever. So I'm assuming this is why. I haven't looked into it. But I'm assuming that they've noticed this. What we're calling neurodivergent people are people that don't have that signal gating system. At least not to that degree, to that extent. And so context aware adaptations are increasingly being acknowledged in the field of evolution, speaking of. Right? So, like, adaptations that seem to be aware of, like, temporal parameters. Like, if we don't do this now, we're going to be extinct soon type shit. So rather than 10 million years, it's happening in a season with, like, acacia trees that don't want to get cut down anymore. That couldn't possibly know what tannin they're getting logged, you know? So my point is that these mechanisms that allow humanity to be exploited are being subjected to de-emphasis and de-evolution rapidly. And so the only recourse that they have is to try to scare the shit out of people, which lowers IQ, to create dissonance and chaos, and also to exploit reinforcement, because we have these recursive generative models, you know. This is where extremism comes from. Like, when people get older and they become, like, more crystallized in a thing, it's because these certain signal pathways are the only thing that's getting reinforced over and over again throughout their entire life. The nervous system's editing everything else out. Right? So you know what those pathways are and what they're related to if you're the elite, and then you are fucking reinforcing, you know what I mean? You're feeding those pathways in order to sort of foment extremism and dissonance. But and this is just my opinion, I guess, I really doubt that their artificial engineering is any match for nature. Like, in a way, like, I'm not really religious exactly, but if you think they're going to win, you're blaspheming against God, basically. Like, that would be one way to put it. Because you're saying that their artificial, like, you know, ego-based intelligence is superior to that of the universal mind, I guess, if we want to avoid the word. It's fucking stupid. And their artificial goal states, I think we'll find, are actually subservient to the organic ones. At the end of the day, it all serves the purposes of the light. Evil is not exactly out of place in the universe. It's just about understanding the context and the necessity of every single constituent element. And also understanding that when you look at the processes and analyze them and understand them, you see that the objective that these things fuel, all of this darkness fuels, is totally compensatory at the end of the day. But again, that's partly up to us. If there was no reason for sentience to exist in the universe, it would not. We are here for a reason. We're part of the process. And it's kind of like, you know, when you have a child and they have these filters that the parent has put on them to protect them from the world. Now that we are becoming an adult species, it's time to take the filters down, but that also means taking responsibility for your own processes, right? That's why we actually do need psychedelics now, you know, in order to sort of catalyze and compensate for these artificial influences. And you know what I mean? Like, it's part of the balancing act. And it makes sense that we would have to make the conscious decision to do it ourselves rather than the universe just doing it for us like a fucking parent, right? So at a certain point, the responsibility for our own evolution falls on our shoulders, as it rightly should. And, you know, when Jesus said, "Ye are gods," this is exactly what he was talking about. And by the way, that was just something Hermes said that they put in his mouth in the book, but that's where you're going to be familiar with it from, unfortunately. Anyways, Where was I going? Yeah, that's what that's about. You know, metaprogramming our multidimensional selves becomes our responsibility because the responsibility is no longer on nature. The automatic, the subconscious, the ratios of governance are changed in the awakening process, if you want to call it that. But that means that we have to take responsibility for the process and determine its outcome. And we're not on our own in making the determinations about what that should look like because we are part of a collective goal state. And something that I've never heard Michael Levin address about this, you know, he's pretty much proven that the goal states exist and that the information comes downstream through the field to these systems and tells them how to behave, whether we're talking about particles or single-celled organisms or whatever. And one of the reasons, I'll give you an example of like how we know that's true. If you take a laryngeal cell out of your throat and you put it in a petri dish with damaged neurons, it will suddenly start repairing the neurons, even though there's nothing in the memory of the cell from being in your throat that should tell it how to do that. Right? And then there's also the, what the fuck are they called? The xenomorphs or something, the xenobots. They're dead, they're frog skin cells, but they, when they reproduce, they have to engage in a novel behavior that's not in the frog DNA. The information's in the field, right? So this is where it gets confusing because what that implies is that the goal state has already been achieved. Otherwise, the information would not be available to send downstream. And that was messing with me earlier today. We had our Discord talk, and it's like, okay, so if the perfected goal state already exists, then what the fuck are we doing here creating it? You know, and there are answers. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. I've already been talking longer than I want, but or had intended to. It's not that I don't want to. It's just I am definitely guilty of overindulging last night. I'm not even shy about it, and I'm tired, you know. But this is important, so I'm trying to do my best to flesh it the rest of the way out. Yeah, so I don't even know what the fuck I was saying there, except that that's just a weird thought that the perfected goal state is already there somehow, sending information downstream to us. But it is, you know, like that's just, it is. So another way to understand this is just entrainment in Fibonacci. Once we entrain even part of a system with the natural pulses, for lack of a better word, the entire system will just start to entrain with it. So it's like once we really can catalyze the process on any level, there is this immovable force or irresistible, you know, like the ultimate fucking tractor beam that once we fall back into alignment with, it'll just spread throughout the ecosystem, you know, through entrainment. And I probably should explain a lot about what I mean there, but I already have in my universal algorithm videos. So if you want a better explanation, go and look there. But that's the fundamental thing to understand, you know, that what we have been taught are just rotten defects in the constituency of mankind are largely reflections of an environment that's been engineered to maintain those characteristics in order to justify the existence of those in the position to exploit. Right? And if people become aware of that dissonance and start to remove it, entrainment with what should naturally be occurring is what will happen in the simplest fucking terms, you know? And it's crazy because, you know, it sounds like hippie fluff or whatever, but the reality is the hippies weren't wrong. They just didn't have enough information. They didn't have context. They didn't have shamanic training. You know, they were just like upper middle class boomer kids that suddenly like had their fucking mind forged manacles shook, you know, and things were getting in there, but they just didn't have, you know what I mean, the preparation and the knowledge, and but they weren't wrong. What they were sensing was the truth, that there's this collective harmonization that can occur and is our natural state of being. The thing is, one of the tricks that they have engineered in society is that when you realize that one system is wrong, it's just kind of human nature, or it's something in our nervous systems, the signal gating again. You go, okay, this was wrong, so what else is there? Communism. Okay, so, you know, and then now we've gone too far to one side of the pendulum has swung too far, you know? And the truth is that in the middle of that spectrum between capitalism and communism somewhere is the truth. And the truth is that there is a balance between optimizing for individual self-expression and freedom and optimizing for the collective. And that should be the goal, to find that balance. And that is not it. In fact, we're told it doesn't even exist, and it's not even a thing to think about, and, you know. But at this point, we have biology, we have mathematics, we have physics, we have on every level, like, no, this is it. This is how things are supposed to work. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys, like, the more we watch this, like, clown show, the more, like, insanely obvious it is that what I'm saying is true. And you know what I mean? Like, for a long time, one of the bets that I've hedged, I guess, is that their hubris would be their downfall. And I kind of see that happening where, like, they're trying to maintain a masquerade, like, way, way past the, you know what I mean? Like, the fiend. It's like, this show is termino, you know? I mean, you guys know as well as I do, like, the older generations that are still kind of acting like they believe it, they don't really. You know what I mean? They're just fucking cowards, really. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. They're just cowards. It's not that they don't know. You know, the gig is already up. It's already been fully exposed to, like, several generations at this point, I think. It's just a matter of presenting the case for the way forward in a way that's digestible enough that they have the courage to make the switch from the old mentality to the new one. You know, and I might not be doing a perfect job of it tonight, but I can pretty much explain it to them myself. You know, we should probably find somebody in a suit with, like, you know, nice white teeth and shit to you know what I mean? But, like, beyond that, we actually do have the blueprints for the new paradigm are written in the fucking stars, really. What's going on, guys? I barely look at the chat. Please consider supporting me, too, because I can't do shit without support. And it has been a hell of a year. I had surgeries that didn't go well and complicated, put me out of work. It was rough, man. Hating it. But I can only assume that I survived and I'm still here because this is the upswing. You know, I can't tolerate anything else. And there's no excuse for it. Like, I'm 100% certain that I am on the right track for the right reasons, and it's really fucking important. And if I can't find support for that, then, like, there's nothing really worth saving. I mean, you know, I mean, it might sound like arrogant or something, but I'm pretty sure that equation is fair. I watched a gamer get $1 million tip one time for, like, doing something stupid. And I almost just, like, walked out on the back porch and just, like, blew my head off. Like, not seriously, you know, but I mean, that is, like, seeing stuff like that in our world is just so fucking just abominable. $1 million tip for gaming, you know, and the guy just stood up and started beating his head into his refrigerator. I mean, what else you gonna do? I guess, you know, $1 million. But you know, it's probably some game Elon Musk had been stuck at that, like, you know, that boss or something for a year, and he's just fucking hating it. And then the guy beat it, and he's like, "Son of a bitch," and just like impulsively sent the dude $1 million. You know what I mean? Fuck that though. Like, really, man. Come on. We got common folk out here trying to take on empires and shit. And you know what I mean? Don't be donating $1 million to a fucking streamer. All right. If you guys have any subjects or questions or anything like that, hit me up with them now. I'm definitely running out of steam, and I want to play music today. That was like my real goal, and I didn't get around to it because our Discord talk got so deep that, and I'm sorry if you're out there, you know who I'm talking to. I did not record it again, and I wish I had this time because it went fucking hyperdimensional. And I wasn't, definitely wasn't expecting it. So I do apologize I didn't record it. Gotta get around to remembering about that. Yeah, do join the Discord if you haven't already, because we have some really highly motivated people, and I know at least 3 of us are Mensa fucking certified, like, and they're all really good people, you know. Like, I don't know that there's anyone in there I wouldn't give a briefcase with $1 million to and not worry about it. At least I can say for sure there are at least 2 or 3 people that I definitely would do that and not worry about it. So we have a very good core community, but we need more collaborators. That would be helpful. That would be really helpful. The Discord is in the description of all videos. And also, by the way, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. We are demonetized. All the support comes from the community. And there are options to support one time via PayPal and all that type of shit in the chat and in the descriptions of the videos. Despite the fact that I might sound jaded, I do sincerely appreciate it. And then also we still have spots at a retreat open at the end of January, beginning of February, and then in the early summer and end of summer into the fall. Also, I thought the apprenticeship slot was filled, but it doesn't look like it. So if you're interested in that, it is a big commitment. And please don't even set up a call about it unless you really think that you can take 3 to 6 months off of your life and have plenty of money saved up to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm busy, you know, but if you're serious, feel free to reach out to me about that. I don't see anything coming into the chat, you guys. So, this year, balancing the fucking pentagram at all costs. No compromise. Stand in the light of truth. And don't dim that shit for anybody for any reason. Not for your employer, not for your mom. Not, you know what I mean? Like, if people are toxic, it's their fucking problem, period. Like, you're not giving an inch to fear. Not an inch. If you, like, if you can, stay focused on every fucking breath you take this year. Some of the, like, great geniuses like Bob Dylan and stuff, people around them said that that's what they did. That, like, at some point, Bob just locked onto a breath and never let go. And the reason that's so effective is that the mind works in the language of symbols. So it doesn't even matter if there's actually some vrana or prana or whatever, vril, fucking baraka, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't even matter. So forget about that. I mean, it matters if it's there, you know what I'm saying? But for our purposes right now, you can forget about that. Just symbolic language of the mind. This is your life force. Master the breath, master your life force, master your life. And you'll notice that if anybody gets up in your sphere that has dissonance relative to your field, you'll breathe more shallow. And you won't be paying attention to it. Pay attention, and you'll see that it's true. Lock onto your breath and don't let go. That will help. And then, lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. Define your microcosm exactly every day. And then at night, clear it of all the shit that you've collected during the day that shouldn't be there. Do this every fucking day. And watch your bad relationships fall away. Lose your job. It might be terrifying, but solve et coagula. It has to disintegrate in order to have the space to reconfigure and re-engineer itself. This is like one of the main reasons people think, I started fucking with the occult, my life fell apart. Yeah, stupid, because it has to do that in order for it to reconfigure. Like, what? Just wait a minute, Have some patience. But trust me, it's the best terrible advice that you will ever get. Especially when you incorporate the middle pillar, where you're basically visualizing like the highest possible expression of yourself, fully realized as like a light. And then you're drawing it down into your throat chakra or the sephira in order to remind yourself that every word and every breath is guided by this higher fucking goal state. Into the heart next to regulate your emotions, into the crotch to regulate your creative impulses, and into your feet to guide your steps. So banish or invoking energies in the LBRP in the morning and organizing your fucking universe the way that you want it and defining the energies in it. Then doing this reminder that you're integrating the higher self into all of the, conduct points, all of the nodes in your local renderer, and then banishing all the bullshit every fucking day for a year. This is what Hermetic initiates are required to do, like all of them, in like every Hermetic society that I'm aware of. And there's good fucking reason for it. If you need help and personal guidance with this, I can help you. So you can shoot me an email. We can maybe consider setting up some video calls. And with that, I'm out of here because I'm tired as hell and it's about to start storming. And that means the internet's probably going to get wonky. So I hope everyone had a wonderful fucking New Year's Eve. It was cool for us. We just, family, bought fireworks, blew them up, drank. Kind of funny because it's still plant medicine. They sell this liquor in the neighborhood that's like chuchawasi and cascarilla and all these medicinal plants. And the idea is that you're not going to get a hangover, and it's true. They're like the best like adaptogens in the jungle, and they put them all in the liquor. So, and it also actually protects your liver and stuff. I mean, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Like if you're going to drink, that stuff is the stuff to drink because it's like going to do less harm than any other option on the planet. But you're still going to stay up too late and be really tired like I am right now. So, appreciate you guys. And we're going to fuck some shit up this year. Come hell or high water. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Please do consider supporting the channel because I'm not kidding either when I say that I can't do anything without that support. Definitely blowing smoke and talking shit. if I don't have you guys to back me up. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you probably tomorrow night.